Hey everybody, this is Dan with Pain Free You. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Shauna McKinney from Texas. And Shauna has been gracious enough to volunteer to share her story with others, to hopefully allow people to see what's possible, to inspire some people, and share some tips on what worked well for her along her journey from, whenever things started to feeling better and good enough to want to share her story. So, Shauna, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being willing to do this. And everybody don't mind the person in the background there. That's her mannequin,
Felicia.
Felicia. Okay, and if you want to explain
I
that,
sell
you can.
purses, okay?
She
I
sells
don't just have
purses.
a ring.
Yeah. It seems a little bit odd. I just wanted to get that out of the way, just in case anybody's like, "Why is there a mannequin behind you?" So good to
Or
know.
this lady's back there and she never moves. It's kind of creepy. Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you, Shauna. Really appreciate you being willing to do this. Um, so what can you
Thank
tell
you for
me?
letting me be here. And
Yeah.
thank you. You helped me a lot during the healing process. And so I want to thank you for that. And so I kind of just wanted to pay it forward, not just to you, but also to, when you start to think that this thing could be TMS and you're digging for every single person and anecdote,
Mhm.
your page, people on there, just, you know, I just want to pay it forward. So now I can be one of those for other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. So why don't you tell us a little story as to kind of, what happened, what things started, a little bit of maybe the medical journey. We
Okay.
don't want to get into too nitty-gritty details, but we do want to share what you went through. But
Okay. So I am here because I was diagnosed in 2009 with ankylosing spondylitis. And I know it's a lot of people, it's up in the air as to whether that's TMS. I'm here to tell you, in my experience, it absolutely is. 2009, so in 2006, I graduated college and became a medical lab tech. By 2007 or 8, I started having limping symptoms, a little butt pain, and I blow it off because I'm not a type of person that runs to the doctor. Let that go on for over a year. And by 2009, I went to my doctor and I said, this is me and my husband. We worked shift work and we'd go running at night and I'd just be limping down the road. And I was like, this is so weird. And doing all these stretches and nothing would help. And went to the doctor and he said, oh, just do some stretches. I said, no, I'm telling you, I've been doing that for a year. Something's wrong. And he said, well, let me just do an x-ray and I'll show you that nothing's wrong. That tells you how bad it was because a lot of people don't get diagnosed with AS on an x-ray because it's not bad enough to show up. It's got to show up on MRI. Mine
yes,
was so bad. Okay.
can you quickly describe what AS means from a technical perspective? Because some people will be like, well, what's that?
It's an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
It
And
is, it's similar to rheumatoid arthritis, but it attacks the spine, but it really can attack anywhere. But it also, and we'll talk about this later on when it got so bad, it started going after my eyes. I could have lost my eyesight.
gotcha. So,
Yes,
but it does create some deformity and
yes,
bone
physical,
structure
yes.
in the back,
Hunched over and
which creates a little bit of
fusing.
an arch.
Yes,
So
fusing.
please clarify for me when you said this is TMS, because some people will say, you mean this work can cure those changes in the bone? And I like to separate, well, no, the changes in the bone are the changes in the bone, but
Yes,
TMS is where the pain comes in because of
yes.
the
It's
infliction
like
of injury. So,
whatever damage is there is probably going to stay there.
right. I want to
Um,
make that point. Yeah.
Yes, but it kind of halts the progress. It did for me.
Yeah. That's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, so
Okay. So I'll let you continue. I just wanted to make sure that people had some context around
yes, thank you
ankylosing
for that.
spondylitis and what does it mean. And yes, that is a structural thing because there's going to be other people with AS that go, yeah, but it's on the x-ray.
No, and it is physical. I'm not saying that it's not. Yeah, that's what's funny about it. It's like I, of all people, am not going to sit here and tell you that it's not real. I had it on an X-ray. I'm just saying that I went on with my life now. I don't have the pain anymore. So
Exactly. And that's the
yes,
point here.
yes.
Beautiful.
So I went to the doctor. He said, let's just do an x-ray. I'll show you nothing's there. I had severe bilateral sacroiliitis, and he apologized. He said, I'm so sorry. I didn't think anything was going to be wrong. And of course, I had the HLA-B27 gene. And so they told me, and they wanted to put me on Symphony and all these biologics. And I'll try to make it short, but I just never wanted to do that. I just had a bad feeling about it. So I did the no starch diet, lost too much weight. I think some of the placebo, and a lot of people swear by it, and good for them. But for me, I lost too much weight. And for me, I think it was kind of a placebo thing, and it ended up causing more stress. Couldn't do that. For a few years, I went on long-term antibiotic therapy, which is a thing that helped too. Again, I think that was probably in my case a placebo. I don't know. I do know that the science has shown it can reduce inflammation, so maybe so. But I did that for a few years, and then after I had my child, and I went back on the antibiotics because I had to go off to have her. I got a Kindle, and that's kind of where everything changed for me, because I started reading some of these books about You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, Mind Over Medicine, Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, Molecules of Emotion by Candace. It's like one book led to another. And I think that's important to point out, because I was such a medical analytical person. If I had not had that prerequisite of those books, I would have thought every bit of this was snake oil, and I would have never been open to it.
Right.
So it's almost like, by the grace of God, these books popped into my life. And so I read them from probably 2013 to 2019. And I wasn't getting better, though. I was meditating and getting some of the good feelings, and because it's too forced, I guess. So I believed it, and I knew it could work somehow, but I wasn't doing it right. But because of those books, they made me understand there is actual science behind your mind that can heal your body. If it wasn't for that, I would have never done it, because I've been reading medical books since I was 3. Nobody was more medical than me. Wow. So, yeah, so that, and then in 2019, I started getting iritis because I had a stressful job, horrible. There was a lot of rage there. And it would ping pong from one eye to the other. I want to say it started in 2017, kind of went away after I went on the heavy duty steroids, ping pong back and forth, then stopped. But then 2019, when I got the really bad job, I had iritis for a solid year. I want to tell you, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever been through in my entire life. I would go in the bathroom and cry so my husband and daughter didn't see me. I was so scared I was going to lose my eyesight. It was absolutely terrifying.
Can you explain what iritis is?
So, as I said, the disease can attack your spine, but in a small number of people, the white blood cells go into your, it's called anterior uveitis, and they actually attack your own eyeballs. Gotcha. It's very painful, but even more than that, you can lose your sight. Now, yes, you have steroids to prevent that, but you can't stay on those because they cause cataracts. And it was giving me high glaucoma pressure. Sure. So I was having to be on pressure drops. And it was just for a solid year.
Ping pong.
Back and forth. I was on way too many steroids. Sure. I hope that that'll be okay later, but I'll deal with it when it comes. Luckily, I have an excellent eye doctor now. So anyway, that scared me so bad that it pushed me. I'm like, I was already off the antibiotics, off of sheer faith because of the books, but it wasn't working. And somehow, again, by the grace of God, I stumbled upon a coach on Facebook who had healed from ankylosing spondylitis. And as I said, it was just sheer desperation combined with the fact that I'd read those books that I gave him a shot. And when I talked to him for the first time, he told me, and I got mad and blocked him, which I'm sure has happened to you before. Because
actually, I don't know anybody who's blocked me, but if they blocked me and I'm not,
you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
well, people get mad.
I don't think so. I mean, I've never really had that contentious of a discussion with anybody.
He told me it happens to him all the time. Maybe he's a little different with his approach than you.
Yeah, he might be a little bit in your face about stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, he's telling me this is in my mind, And then the iritis kept getting worse and worse. Yeah, and then I started reading a little bit about what he had told me, just the gist of it, and thought about it, and I'm like, okay. I went back to him. I said, I'm sorry I blocked you. He said, it's okay. you're ready now. Let's do this. And then so I utilized his services for about 6 months. What I found just extremely bizarre is we were in a group. I don't know if you experienced this in your group coaching, but we all had the same ACE scores on our childhood. We all had the same personalities. Um, it was just so bizarre. It was like we were all the same people. And so just seeing that made me start to believe more of this stuff. Like he knew me better than I knew myself. I didn't know all this stuff about my personality until he told me. And like my childhood, I was told by my parents, your childhood was great. And when I would try to say something about it, they would be like, it's fine. You didn't have it like we did. So I would shut up and I would stifle and I would repress. And I started to believe it. I was like brainwashed that I had this wonderful childhood. And I said, well, my childhood wasn't like y'all's though. I said, because my dad drank and broke a bunch of stuff, but he loved me. And he said, do you hear yourself right now? So it was kind of just like breaking that barrier, just not to go back and delve, like you say, don't do that, but just to let you see where all this crap comes from
Yeah.
so that you're open to it and you understand.
Just to make a point, a parent can love you and get angry and break stuff. The love doesn't cancel out the chaos of living in that environment. So it may not have been directed at you, but you're still in a chaotic environment,
It was the drinking and things. Yeah.
yeah, which creates a hypervigilance on a child's part. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of separate that out and say that,
Yes.
yeah, parents can love you, but they can still be dysfunctional and create chaotic environments to grow up in.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is I had an extremely turbulent childhood, running out and having to go to hotels in the middle of the night. But
Wow.
you get so used to that, it becomes normal to you that you don't even think anything of it. And I needed him to tell me just to make me realize. And I don't blame them. I'm not mad. I'm over all that. They've since passed away and I forgive them and I love them. But you just have to see just kind of where all that stuff comes from. And then so that you can work through it and move on.
Yes.
And just understand why you are the way that you are.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
yes. Okay. And then
So,
yeah, I think yeah, so just after working with him a little bit, I started to realize I kind of self-diagnosed myself with this alexithymia, but I know that for a fact that that's what I had because like when I started working with him, I had no idea what I was even feeling. He had to tell me, and he taught me how to learn to kind of go through the gamut of emotions. Am I mad? Am I sad? Like the labeling, and it helps you process.
and if you would describe for the audience alexithymia.
So that means you don't know what you're feeling. You literally at any given time have zero idea what you're feeling. It's almost, to me, it's almost like I was a robot. I had no idea. I was so analytical and lab tech and just everything was factual. I like and I want to say that I never had problem setting boundaries or standing up for myself, but I wasn't real good at feeling angry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'd be like, hey, what you just did was wrong, blah, 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 don't do that. Don't do me like that. But I still didn't feel angry. And once I started learning to feel, it was really weird. And just by labeling the feeling, it would help me feel it. It's really bizarre how that works.
Yeah,
Just say,
what I found in my life is my dad had a temper. And as a kid, I vowed I'm never going to be like him because he's you know, an angry dude. Never want to be like him. So for much of my life, anger was just I didn't allow myself to feel it. I became the cool, calm, nothing bugs me kind of a guy. So it sounds like that's fairly similar in your case. Like your dad modeled anger in such a way that you had no choice. Your brain just automatically said, "We're not going to do that."
my mom was a severe codependent, so we just had to be quiet and keep dad happy. Everybody.
Right. You weren't
And
allowed
then
to get angry about it. Yeah, you
my
weren't allowed
grandmother
to
who
get
also,
angry.
I'm sorry.
You weren't allowed to get angry.
No. And then my grandma, who also lived with us, my parents worked a lot. So she did a lot of the raising of me. That hand would come up and slap me and my brother in the face if we cried or got mad or what, you just didn't do it. So there was a lot
Wow.
of things you just, and a lot of I'm not putting anybody down, but a lot of the old school discipline was just kind of like that. Shut up and be quiet and
for sure. I
Yeah.
I get it.
So, yeah, it was just things like that. And again, no blame. You just have to realize why you're the way that you are so that you can fix it and move on.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, just it took, so I worked with him for about 6 months. My eyes were not getting better. And I would message him desperately. And finally, he's like, and he told me what I didn't want to hear, but he was absolutely right. He said, because I was so terrified of the symptom, he knew
Mhm.
I was never going to get better, no matter how much feelings I was feeling. Because, it's you
The
have to do
fear.
both. So he said, I know you don't want to hear this, but you might need to go on the biologic. And I was devastated. So, but luckily, I'm not too far away from Houston. So I was able to go to one of the top iritis specialists in the country because my small town eye doctor, she just kept treating it and bathing me in steroids. So, long story short, I went there. I had given up. I was going to go on the biologic because I didn't want to lose my eyesight. And this wonderful doctor came in and she said, so your back's doing okay. You're not having a lot of problems with that. I said, no, because since I started doing the other stuff, that stuff was getting better because I
Yeah,
wasn't afraid of that.
sure.
And she said, well, I got an idea. Why don't Pred Forte the steroid drop. She said, why don't we do um, one drop a week in each eye? Because inflammation begets inflammation, and she just kind of felt like if we kind of quelled it, I was kind of steroid dependent, in other words. So it was just like a miracle. I said, really, we can do that? She said, yes. So we did that. And then over time, I went to her less and less and less. And then now at this point, that was a couple years ago, I've been in remission ever since. I am still on one drop in each eye every 2 weeks,
Right.
which she said is almost nothing. It's not going to cause any side effects. I flat out told her fear does cause symptoms with me. This is kind of a crutch for me. She said, that's fine. She said, and I had dry eye and stuff too. She said, so in other words, I am on the medicine. I'll probably just stay on it the rest of my life because I do realize that I'm afraid of it. I always will be. And that's okay. And I found a good doctor that gave me something that works. And hopefully I'll never have to deal with it again.
Sure. Yeah,
So anyway.
even dry eyes is a stress-induced, fear-based
Mm-hmm.
change to the autonomic nervous system, and moisture in our eyes is part of the immune system,
Absolutely.
as is saliva is part of the digestive system. And
Mm-hmm.
so people with dry mouth, dry eyes, it's purely based on being in the fight or flight stress response so much that those automatic functions are suppressed. And I see people, restoring their moisture in their mouth, their eyes are becoming more moist, and it's all
I love
related.
it.
It's all related.
It is. And like I said, I'll probably stay on that drop forever, but that's okay. It's my crutch. I understand that about myself because it was so terrifying. I almost have PTSD over the whole iritis thing. But she said, you're not going to have any side effects. My eye pressures are good because it's almost like you're taking nothing. It's almost like you're taking it just for the sake of feeling okay about it.
Yep.
So we've got that worked out. Other than that, I'm not on any drugs. Um, I don't have symptoms anymore. So like I said, I worked with him for about 6 months. I went to the doctor. I did stop working with him at that point because it was kind of like, okay, I feel like you know everything you need to know. Now it's just time to go out and practice it.
And do it. Yeah.
I still wasn't getting all the way better. Some it would come back, and then I found your page, and you kind of help like tie up all the loose ends and put all the nails in the coffin to tie everything together. So I really appreciate that because I was still doing a lot of the digging into my past, which makes you have feelings that you wouldn't even be having. So you kind of helped me. Like, it's good that I knew all that, but it was time to let's live in today now. And so you kind of helped me with that. And then I messaged you. You were so sweet because you'd never spoken to me. And I was really, really scared. And I messaged you and you said, take my test. And then I took the test, and that helped me a lot to see, okay, this really is TMS. Because with autoimmune, it's just so hard to convince yourself of that because it's so up in the air with so many people. Some say it is, some say it isn't.
Sure.
But to me, it is. And so, like I said, you helped me kind of seal it all and get it all squared away because it's like, you know it, but you just need more and more people to tell you and help you feel. And you're also a very calming presence too when people are scared of your videos. Um, so, and then another thing that helped me was one day I had a realization, because again, being so medical, it's like, how can you convince yourself that ankylosing spondylitis is TMS? And so I've always had TMJ, the temporomandibular joint thing.
Sure.
And that, if your jaw gets messed up, you get inflammation all these other places. So it kind of helped me just like from tensing. And I know when you're repressing, I was always like tensed up. And
Yeah.
I noticed when I learned to feel my feelings, my body's relaxed. So it kind of helped me just like say, well, it's kind of like TMJ, but of the whole body. And it helped me believe that and understand that, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like, because wherever you're tightening, the inflammation's all around it, because it goes in your neck and all in your ear and all this stuff here. So it made sense that if I'm tensing here and it's inflaming all this, that tensing down here, which is where I was tensing my gut and everything, and probably the butt area, oh, the pain was so bad and the limping.
Yeah. So let's talk about the TMJ for a second. Um, People will say, well, my jaw bite is off.
Mhm.
And people are like, well, that can't be TMS. Well, what's causing the jaw bite to be off? Tense muscles. Well, what's causing the tense muscles? The perception of danger. The clenching can sometimes pull differently on different sides. And I don't know if you've seen my picture, but um, halfway down the page at painfreeyou.com, you see how crooked I was. So I was like all jacked up. That was purely TMS, but I developed muscle imbalances from pain and spasms and pulling me out of whack. So I think a lot of TMJ is tight muscles clenching, which can affect the jaw muscle or the jaw joints. But I think once you eliminate the fear and the perception of danger, the muscles can relax and the jaw can return normal function. So, are you able to speak to any of that in your experience, or is the
Yes.
TMJ better now?
Even to this day, I still have flare ups of the TMJ. I find that if I put a pencil between my teeth for about 20 minutes, it fixes it. It's just so, even if you're feeling your feelings and stuff, you get busy doing stuff during the day and you tense up and you don't even realize it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad you explained it. That's what I was trying to get across, because I feel like I had that same thing going on, but down here, if that makes sense. It just had everything inflamed from
Yeah.
tensing.
Yeah. Tight muscles to me are absolutely a protective measure by the brain. Right. And if you're very fearful, fight or flight, your shoulders come up, your everything tightens up. I was very overprotective of my back because I had so much back pain, and I would walk like I was a robot, always guarded, always protected. Um, you've mentioned inflammation a couple of times, and at least in my experience and research, that may be involved, but I don't know that the inflammation is the cause of the pain. I think the brain can turn on pain that fast, turn it off that fast. Inflammation maybe there as a byproduct. And
I
I
believe you're absolutely right.
I think this, and there's actually a pain scientist named Lorimer Mosley, and he did some testing on people with CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. And what they were able to do in a real study was show that by imagining moving an arm, they could feel the pain and measure inflammation just by imagining moving an arm. So the brain's controlling everything, inflammation, pain, but I think the pain can turn on like that and turn off like that. The brain's in control of that. Um, so I don't know that, we really want to focus people on tight muscles and inflammation because then they're going to be like, well, I got to do an anti-inflammatory diet and this and that, and let me stretch and let me work the muscles. No, 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 no. Let's stay at the core root of the problem, which is a scared brain, hypervigilant,
Right.
always looking out for danger, finding danger, often a misperceived danger, like it's a falsely, it's false danger. But if the brain is always up here, symptoms can result. And then we get freaked out by symptoms. And
Right.
so,
So let me clarify what I meant by that.
please.
So, yes. So what I meant was, if I have an emotion that I'm repressing, my body tenses up.
Hmm.
I noticed when I started labeling them and allowing them to move through, not only did the anxiety go away, but my body was loose because I let myself know it's okay to have this feeling. Like I told you, the hand would come up when I was a kid. So I think I would just automatically, you know?
Put it down.
So I'm not saying that, oh, stop tensing up or your pain. I'm saying feel your emotion
Hmm.
so your body can relax. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel the emotion.
Yeah. And what you just described echoes what I teach all the time, which is if the brain perceives emotions as dangerous, we'll get pain, tension, whatever it may be. And what you've just described is you taught your brain that the emotions are okay. They're safe. They're normal. Doesn't
And I
make you
had
a
to do
bad
this
person.
the same thing with the symptoms. I had to get to the point, besides the eyes, luckily I had medicine for that because I couldn't have done that. But okay, my back hurts, my butt hurts. So what? Hi, have a nice day. Oh, and my favorite video of yours ever was Bring It On.
Yeah.
I loved that video. That video, I was in a horrible flare when you posted that or when I found it. And I was just smashing on that leg. For the next 24 hours, I would walk and smash on that leg. And normally a flare like that would last 3, 4 weeks and it was gone in 24 hours.
Wow.
So it works.
And for anybody watching, you can search YouTube. Go just search YouTube, pain-free you, bring it on, and you'll find it. But the reason that works is because this whole thing is driven by the perception of danger, also known as fear. And so by confronting the fear by saying, give me more, your brain has no choice but to go, Sean is not scared. What? There's no fear. There's no perception of danger. You're saying, give me more. And the brain goes, well, if there's no fear, must be okay, and can dial down things. And your flare, 3 week flare turned into a day.
Mm-hmm. So
So,
even now, I'll get a twinge of something here or there on my leg. And instead of saying, oh my God, it's back, I've trained myself to go, what am I feeling right now?
mhm.
Oh, I'm sad. Okay, well, let's be sad. And then it's like, and my other teacher taught me like the anxiety is a smoke screen. That helped me a lot too, because sometimes if anxiety pops up, it's just a feeling too, either a pain or an anxiety. There's an emotion behind it.
Yeah,
So, and it's just you need to train yourself to focus on the emotion instead. That's just the bottom line. And again, find a way to not be scared.
yeah.
And
And
it's hard. It's hard to not be scared. I know.
that's Sarno's daily reminder. Think psychological.
Mm-hmm.
Shift your attention from the symptom to what am I feeling right now? Emotionally, not sensation physically, but emotionally, which is great.
Is Steve Ozanich. I even messaged him one time. You said ankylosing spondylitis. I was looking for all this reassurance everywhere. He wrote me back and said, yes. I mean, so I'm saying that it is. My old coach said that it is. Steve Ozanich said that it is.
I
And I've
agree
read
with you.
lots of, yeah. So I
Yeah,
hopefully,
and that's why I clarified. I was like, let's separate the structural changes from the pain, right? And you apparently have halted the structural changes as well, which is fantastic because that may have been who knows what changed in the immune system that started causing that to happen for the immune system to be overreactive and go after that. Similar to rheumatoid arthritis.
Mhm.
It's an autoimmune system, but when we go all the way upstream to the root cause, I think a big percentage of RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and the immune system dysfunction that allows it to mess with the joints and create, the abnormalities is driven by a suppressed immune system from fight or flight, which suppresses the immune system. And if you have enough of that, um, it absolutely can impact things and allow things like AS or RA to take hold. And in many cases, like you were led down the path, we've got to take this drug, steroids, everything else to manage the symptoms. But none of it got to the root cause, which is, fight or flight, probably from the time you were a kid.
yeah. And I also want to add, this is going to sound really crazy, but sometimes I'm glad that I got AS and healed because I have a lot of depression and some mental illness in my family. alcoholism. It's just like learning to deal with your feelings the way that you're supposed to. It's so much better than just healing the physical part,
Mhm.
because I'm just happier all the way around. There were times like I have a great husband and child and great life and everything, but I always felt bad and I didn't know why. And then I'd feel guilty for feeling bad. And I think I had this clogged up gunk of emotions like stuck, if that makes sense. And it's like once I learned to move everything through, I'm just living in the now moment now, and I'm just actually happy. So it makes me kind of glad it all happened. It's like I broke that cycle of my family. My dad had rheumatoid arthritis too. It's
Yeah.
like I broke all that cycle of that stuff in my family. And the best part of it all is I won't hand that down to my daughter. I ask her all the time, well, how did that make you feel when they said that? So how are you feeling? And she'll go, Mom, you and your feelings. But I ask her all the time because I want to train her to always know what she's feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said some of these things are in my family, my mom told me for decades, oh, depression it's in our genes, it's genetic. And I joked with her a couple of years ago, Mom, when's that genetic depression going to hit me? Right? I'm in my 50s. And she's like, oh, it's genetic. It's genetic. Well, it didn't hit my sister or brother either. So like, I don't know. I don't attach as much weight on genetics. Do they play a part? Possibly. But I believe that it's like this much genetics, this much environment, upbringing, exposure to chaos, whatever it may be. Um, so I just wanted to bring that out because you said it's in my family, and some people will be like, yeah, see, it's genetic.
Right. I mean, what I'm talking about is the generational dysfunction,
Yes, yes.
because I wasn't allowed to feel my feelings, neither were they, and neither were their parents. How long had that stuff been going on? So I feel like because I learned this,
Hmm.
I can put a halt to it right here so
Beautiful.
that she will not hopefully have that.
Yeah, I like this quote. I think it just cracks me up. The goal of parenting is to raise a child that doesn't need to recover from their childhood,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing that. You've realized the pattern, how it's come down through the generations, and you said it stops here, which is beautiful.
Yeah, my parents both died in 2021 and I was not healed yet. um, I was still having trouble learning exactly what I was feeling all the time. And then after they died, I'm like, I'm probably sad because both my parents just, I'm telling you, that's how hard it was for me to even know what I was feeling. And like, as I said, when I hit on the right emotion, it moves through and, oh, I am sad. And then I was just sad a lot and grieved. But it's just, I had to learn over the course of, it took me 3 years to heal. um, I just had to just constantly, and to this day, and I probably will have to for the rest of my life, I have to say, what am I feeling? What am I feeling?
Nothing wrong with that. That's not fixing. That's just emotional awareness.
Do other people have to do that though? That we're, it's kind of, I don't hear other
I
people
don't
have to.
I don't know that other people have to do it. My general approach, at least for me, is recognize when I am feeling something and allow myself. But I don't have a practice where I ask myself a bunch of times, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Now, I've been chronic pain free for 14 years. I don't have a daily practice, but if I feel a twinge, I go, huh, what's going on? And I'll recognize there's some emotional chaos going on in my life, whatever it may be, whether it be work-wise, personally, you name it. And then I allow myself to recognize that, label it, and then I shift away from the symptom because I know the symptom isn't really important. It was just a little cue to go, there's a lot of stress going on. There's a lot of emotions going on. So you found your way. It's perfect. And whether other people do it the same way doesn't matter. But my encouragement for people is notice when you're feeling a little agitated. That could be a sign of my body's tense. It could be a twinge of a symptom. It could be anything. And it's a great point that you made. Go right to, well, what emotion am I feeling? What's going on? Which is Sarno's thinks psychologically. which is
It's so
brilliant.
hard to train yourself to do it, but once you get used to it, it gets easier. It just took me 3 years.
Well, we have judgment from when we were kids that certain emotions are bad.
Hmm.
And so we don't want to feel those bad emotions like guilt and shame. Well, that means you did something you're wrong that you shouldn't have done. Who wants to feel guilt or shame? Nobody. So push it away. Who wants to
Yeah.
feel sad? You know, we've always been taught, don't be weak.
Hmm.
How does that, stiff
Or
upper,
don't cry. Don't be
don't cry.
sad.
Yeah, don't be a big baby,
Hmm.
right? And so
Hmm.
we learn that those things are not cool. They're not allowed. They make us less of a person. If
I
you,
have also noticed, and I've heard other people say this, especially with AS, that the high emotions are uncomfortable. There are times where when I'm happy or excited, it feels really weird. So you just got to get used to it. It's uncomfortable when you're first learning to
yeah.
feel those emotions. So even the good ones, sometimes they feel funny when you're learning to feel them.
Well, keep in mind also, excitement and fear from a physiological standpoint, they feel the same. Because when you're
Hmm.
excited, what do we get? Burst of adrenaline. When we're fearful, what do we get? A burst of adrenaline. And a brain that's always hyper aware might react to excitement with, oh, there's that adrenaline again. What's wrong? And symptoms can increase as a result.
That
So,
makes sense.
it's you've learned these things intuitively through your experience and your research and learning and practicing. Um, but it could just be that your brain is wired to be aware of adrenaline and even the good feelings that create a little bit of a burst. Your brain goes, "What's that?" It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, this all of this stuff is weird, but it's also really interesting. And I actually ended up having to leave my job and I started my own business. I know not everybody's able to do that, but in my case, that was not the job for me. It was too stressful. I was very fortunate and blessed that my husband said, just quit, focus on getting better. I
Right.
know the job's contributing to your stress. And so that helped me too. I mean, I know not everybody's able to do that, but in my case, I had to make changes.
Yeah. And in some cases, um, that can backfire
Yeah.
because if you quit your job and now you're sitting around all day doing nothing but thinking about your symptoms, hmm, doesn't always work out well.
Yes.
Sounds like you were able to focus both on healing as well as, well, and I don't know what the timing was when you started your business, but
That came later. It kind of all came organically. But I just wanted to focus on being a stay-at-home mom and a housewife. And so that's what I did. I did not ruminate on the symptoms.
good.
Yeah.
And that's the clarity that I want to give people who are like, well, Shauna quit her job. Maybe I need to
No.
quit my job.
Yeah. I was almost hesitant to say that, but it is part of my story. Being a medical lab tech is an extremely stressful job. And I was always worried I was going to make a mistake and hurt somebody with a lab test. And, lots of people are, it just my personality. It's funny, I went to college for that and I thought I loved it, that my symptoms started within a year and a half or 2 years after I got that job.
Yeah.
I think my subconscious was saying no. And then when I got my own lab that I was running, that's when the iritis and all that. So I think sometimes your subconscious tries to tell you things about your own self. And that was just my situation. It's not going to be the same for everybody.
Yeah, that's really great stuff. Is there anything else you want to share that was like,
No, I think
maybe?
that's it. I got everything I wrote down.
All right, cool. Um, if you met yourself day one when it started, what would you tell yourself?
That it's going to be okay. Just have faith. But what's funny is like somehow I knew that. I knew I was not going to go on the medicine. I knew it wasn't for me. And I also want to clarify that the medicine is very good for people who need it. So please don't think I'm putting it down because there's some people that end up needing it. My dad had really bad rheumatoid arthritis and he would have never gone for this stuff. So I'm glad that it's there,
Yeah,
but it's not for everyone. And I knew it wasn't for me. And so I just knew I would find a way one way or the other. I just didn't know it was going to take me 13 years. So
yeah.
wait. Yeah, 13 years.
Yeah, I love the just know you're going to be okay. That is such a warm feeling of don't write yourself off. Don't fall into that pit of despair and hopelessness. There's a way forward, folks. And, even if you're reluctant to believe that the mind has anything to do with ankylosing spondylitis, it's like, but it does. Yeah, people are like, well, the mind and body are connected. I'm like, no, it's one system. It's not that they're connected by our neck. I mean, it's one system. And I always say the brain controls everything. And so if you can teach the brain that you're actually okay and safe and get yourself out of that crisis mode, which unfortunately you and many other people have lived in, the brain operates this machinery called the human body so much better, more effectively. Systems can regulate and operate the way they're supposed to. And I think all of this stress and fear and perceived danger just creates an awful lot of interference in all of the various symptoms, whether it be digestive, nervous system, immune system, whatever it may be. And then we get medicalized by doctors who are saying, well, you're broken with this, and look at this. And then the research online, and holy crap, you read the horror stories, and this leads to that, and everything else, and fear, fear, fear. And the system just doesn't really have an opportunity to settle down. And the analogy I'm just thinking of is, you're standing in a creek and you're trying to get the water to clear up by swishing it around, and you're just making more mud. But sometimes if you can just get still and let the water do what it does, you'll be able to see your toes in that 6 inches of water. But if you're like, so much of this work is trying to clear the mud out of the water and open, and we're just stirring it up even more. So I really appreciate you for sharing your story. It's brilliant. Yeah, I just love to see that you've done so well with it, that you're doing so great. You're willing to share your story and inspire some other people and help delineate between the difference of, yeah, real physical change from ankylosing into, but you don't have to hurt and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to keep getting worse. Because I think
And
what,
you can feel better here too. That's the added bonus.
well, yeah, and you said, I'm glad this happened to me, right? And while you're in it, people are like, this is the worst thing ever. This happened to me. This is awful, and virtually everybody that comes out the other side, like you have, kind of recognizes it as a gift,
Mhm.
as a blessing that allowed me to become a better version of myself and break some
To be happy. Yeah.
yeah, and break some generational dysfunction. And yeah, everything about it is beautiful. So I am so thrilled for you. I'm so happy you were willing to do this story here. Um, if I can ever do anything for you, you let me know. But any last words, or are you good?
I think that's it. But thank you for having me. And again, thank you for your videos and all the time that you put in to help people because it's really a blessing.
Awesome.
Much appreciated.
Well, I'm thrilled to be able to do it and help people out. So thank you again, and take care, everybody.